That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about
Rosario,
the directorial debut of Felipe Vargas, which Variance Films is releasing May 2nd, 2025.
Directorial debut. What is Rosario about? Rosario spends the night with her grandmother's body while she waits for the ambulance to arrive. During a severe snowfall, Rosario is attacked by otherworldly entities that have taken control of her grandmother's body. What is your pull quote?
Compelling ideas are snuffed out by negligible supernatural elements in Rosario, a well-intentioned Latin American horror film which ends up feeling like migrant exploitation.
Mine. Rosario is difficult to take seriously, in large part due to the unconvincing lead performance, which feels like we're watching a bored teenager walk through a haunted house.
Yes, I would agree with that.
I'm bummed I didn't care for this movie.
No, again, there are some interesting ideas. It just, it's one of those films where we're stuck in the same place for a long time, and it kind of loses steam.
So Rosario is played by
Emeraude Toubia. Very beautiful.
very beautiful
However,
young woman who we understand is like a Wall Street investment banker of some sort. And we see that on a day where a blizzard is coming, she gets a call from the superintendent of her grandmother's building that she has died. So someone needs to come and deal with this. And apparently the only family available nearby is Rosario. Her father is hours away due to the snowstorm, impending snowstorm, and
he's in Jersey.
her mother is dead. So Rosario makes her way to her grandmother's house, and immediately weird things start happening. And then she uncovers that her grandmother has like a dungeon dedicated to her Palo Santo, like dark arts, black magic type stuff. And through a series of events realizes that a sacrifice was made to ensure that Rosario had a good life. So sort of the underlying story is that this is a migrant family who crossed the border illegally and, struggled to make ends meet. And so the grandmother, we think, is the one who made this sacrifice, like a deal with the devil, to ensure Rosario's success. Another underlying theme is that Rosario seems to have abandoned her heritage.
Her mother's side of the family, and this is her matriarchal grandmother. So she hasn't spoken to her in years. Griselda is her name.
And they demonstrate that by Rosario goes by Rosa, and they have her dressed in a way that's very like corporate, I guess.
Whitewashed?
And so she figures that out and then ultimately conjures a spell that she thinks has relinquished the demon.
That she finds in a book, an errant book. There are more than... I was confused. There might be more than one errant book.
We need to talk about all that. But, so that's all during the snowstorm, during nighttime. So morning comes. It seems like everything's fine. The dad finally shows up. Don't know why it took him 12 hours to get there. But he shows up and says, "Oh, what happened? Because you're all bloody." She has multiple wounds on her face, broken glass everywhere.
But doesn't seem... Her face is beat up, and he does not seem nearly as alarmed as he should.
Although, maybe it makes sense because the dad tells Rosario, "Why don't you take the car keys, go warm up the car. I'm just going to go use the bathroom." And so she's looking through family portraits and immediately comes across a portrait of her father and mother embracing, and she notices that her dad's hand looks kind of weird, which confused me. Like, has he always had this weird hand and she just now noticed? But that causes her to go look in the dungeon for her dad. And then we see that he was the one who sold his soul to the devil.
On a lark.
On a lark, which we need to talk about. So then, again, Rosario is able to read this one book or multiple books to sort of understand what's happening. And then she says, "Oh, if the person who created the spell gives back the blood to the something, to this cauldron, then they are taken back." So then she says, "Dad, don't tell me you put your blood in there." And he did. So he turns into like an evil spirit. And then we have poor David Dastmalchian playing the neighbor Joe, who for the entire film you think is like involved,
Well,
which we'll get back to. But he thankfully pops up and tries to help Rosario, but he ends up getting killed. And Rosario stabs her dad in the neck, presumably killing him. Then we flash forward 6 months and see that Rosario has now, like, I guess embraced her heritage because she goes by Rosario. She no longer has her like Art Deco office and a high rise. She's working in something that looks a lot more earthy. And she has all her little like trinkets and family portraits around. And she's helping a character who in the beginning of the movie, she told no to because his portfolio wasn't big enough.
very Drag Me to Hell.
So it seems like all's well that ends well, except all of a sudden she starts coughing and the demon shoots out of her mouth at the end. Okay. What did I like about the movie? Like you said, I think there are some really interesting ideas. I like the cinematography.
Sure, Carmen Cabana, who lends that Sydney Sweeney Blumhouse film Nocturne. If you
I
remember.
thought there were a lot of like interesting flourishes and how the film is shot.
I mean, even the way you're describing it now brings my mind. The demon coughing is like this is the supernatural version of Graham Greene's The End of the Affair, which the remake had Julianne Moore. She makes a deal with God to save her lover.
Well, let's get to films this reminded us of. But before that, I also appreciated the practical effects. I thought they looked nice. And even the set design, I mean, it does feel like we're in the haunted house at Disneyland.
This jaundiced, murky.
It's comical.
It is, and when you say dungeon, to me that word implies like underneath, like going down. But the dungeon is just, she finds this hole in the wall and leads off to this whole other area. That reminded me of Barbarian now that I think of it, when Justin Long discovers the lair and he gets so excited about property value because he's got more square footage.
Yes. Well, and so then when that happened, you're like, how could this be? And then I thought, oh, because we have David Dastmalchian as the weird neighbor, and then the superintendent of the building,
Paul Ben Victor.
He's also acting strange. So then I thought, oh, these two are involved in whatever nonsense the grandmother was on.
So it's like the Blackburn in Rosemary's Baby, where the whole building.
Yes. So then I thought maybe that explains how she was able to occupy this secret
She has all this space. How much did that?
But then we realized that neither the superintendent or the weird neighbor knew anything about her evil doings. And then we find out that she really wasn't the evil one. It was her son-in-law, the dad, who made this deal with the devil.
Oscar.
And the grandmother committed the rest of her life to keeping this evil spirit at bay by giving her own blood to this cauldron. And that's why we see the grandmother's arms are all scarred up from cutting, because which of course is supposed to make you feel bad because Rosario herself feels like she abandoned her grandmother and mother because she sort of went with her father when they divorced to try to have this better life as a Wall Street banker. But other movies this reminded me of, so we reviewed a film called The Vigil about this Jewish guy who I guess is like a practice in their faith to stay with the body overnight. That felt similar to me.
Even the movie The Djinn, a little bit too. I think we reviewed that.
We reviewed a film called Madres.
Yes.
Which I think was similar in that it's like, well, like you said, a really interesting premise that it just totally bungles.
Yeah.
The Accursed.
With Mina Suvari and Meg Foster.
And even like the film Skinwalker with Udo Kier we reviewed.
Well, yeah, that's a trope, right? Like this child going back to the familial territory or land to be confronted with secrets that are heinous and horrendous, harrowing.
But the point is, I mean, this film feels like a lot of maybe like subpar movies that don't really take you anywhere.
But again, like, because we get the flashback, the demon that we're seeing is Elena, played by Diana Lein,
which is Rosario's dead mother.
Yes, who we don't know who she is initially, and then we come to find that, and then we get to see a flashback, Rosario gets to be in her mother's shoes as she crossed the border in this very traumatic moment. But it plays out in such a way that I would say that it really misses the mark. Like, because that should really be a profound moment.
Well, yeah, the trauma of that experience of, her family crossing the border and the idea that Rosario should feel lucky that, I mean, I'm not quite sure what the message is.
That Rosario has been able to distance herself from her heritage with in a guilt free, because this demon version of her mother is like, you're such a selfish girl.
Right. Okay, I'm also a little confused about the demon because whomever made the like because they say more than once like this demon wants to come back and collect. But collect what? From whom? Because in the end, everyone's dead.
Well, exactly.
I
And
mean,
then,
I'm assuming Rosario's dead if the demon done jumped out of her mouth.
well, in
But
that 6 month jump, like why did the demon take 6 months to come back? Or is this just a regular weekly thing she has to go through with it coming out of her mouth? Like,
yeah, maybe.
I don't know. And then Emeraude Toubia, again, incredibly beautiful. She reminded me a little bit if you mixed Melissa Barrera and Emily Blunt. However,
I don't know if it was a function, like maybe the director said you need to act like a little whitewashed. I don't know what they were telling her to do, but she just comes across so flat. And then, first of all, if I walked into that damn building that looks like a haunted house with this creepy superintendent, child, my grandma's already dead. I could wait outside.
there's rotting food. The
I mean, at a level that sounds like we're in the Evil Dead. It's not just like, oh, my grandma's dusty apartment. It's like, it looks like hell in there, like a comedic version of hell.
Well, you're gonna be, to me, it'd be like, oh, I'm gonna be inhaling mold and toxins. I'm gonna wait down in the lobby till this ambulance gets here.
To be fair, there is an active blizzard, and so it's not like she can easily get around, but it's like I'm waiting by the door.
And
I'm not sitting in this haunted apartment all night.
And that's all David Dastmalchian has to do, is be the creepy, coughing neighbor in the hallway that just wants his air fryer back from Griselda.
Which then ultimately feels like is that supposed to be a comedic turn?
It's supposed to be because Rosario shouts at him. This is like the second insistent scene where he wants his air fryer. She's like, my grandma's Mexican. She would never have one of those. She would never want to use one. And then, of course, it's revealed that she has this air fryer.
Also, I think they're trying to make Rosario seem like she's abandoned her people and she's an awful person, but I don't think she comes across that way. First of all, in the opening, as an adult, we see her driver, so she must be real big time because she has a driver, like a personal driver, who picks her up in a big black SUV to take her to her fancy office in a big high rise. And the driver says, oh, Ms. whatever her last name is,
Fuentes.
could I ask you a question? And she's like, call me Rosario. Okay, Rosario. My wife and I have saved up some money and we're hoping that you could maybe advise us on how to invest it. And she goes, oh, I'm sorry. My firm won't allow me, like you have to hit a certain threshold before I can take on. So yeah, I mean, I don't think that she was being cruel. I mean, they paint her out like she's that mean old lady from the Gremlins. Like, also, while that's happening, she keeps getting phone calls from her grandmother that she's ignoring. So I didn't get the sense, she just seemed kind of stressed out and like, maybe this is not an appropriate time for you to ask me for free financial advice. And then she gets up to her office and some stock that they were in is like dropping. And then her assistant is like, what should we do? And that's when the news announces a blizzard coming. And Rosario goes, well, this business, like what do they do? It's involved with the blizzard, I guess. I didn't quite catch why this business stock would go up because there's a storm, but it does in real time. And then when you think about like this demon that was conjured to give her success, I don't know if they were trying to make it seem like she has the Midas touch because of the demon.
Or is it like Scientology? But yeah, and then we get some descriptions about what Palo is at the beginning, and all I could think was paleo. But again, even how it's injecting maybe this more obscure kind of, what do they say? It's an Afro-Caribbean religion. Like, all of that felt very cliche in how that's presented.
Well, let's talk about that because I think the set design of like all the grandmothers like voodoo type shit, and it just was like, it was like comically overdone.
Well, she's in there. She's touching everything. There are no real lights on. There's a thing with the candles that she blows out and keep coming back on that I think that is abandoned a bit. But it's just like, why don't you just wait till daylight? Or why are you touching everything right now?
Why are you touching all this voodoo shit?
Her grandmother's corpse is oozing with bug. I hated the scene where there's some kind of maggot or insect comes out of her grandma's nose. She takes it with a handkerchief, and then that thing burrows in her
Crawls
hand,
up her body
through her arm, out, and she's able to yank it out of her ear.
well, first of all, she sees this like worm crawl through her arm up into her neck, and then she knows to immediately dig in a drawer, find a pair of tweezers, and immediately pull the bug out of her ear. And she doesn't even. I mean, I would have fell dead to the ground if something like that happened to me.
I would go downstairs and wait near the front entrance or leave. She has money, go to a hotel nearby, do anything.
I just don't think the characterization makes sense. It was really hard to take this seriously. It really felt like I was in some sort of haunted house.
Well, especially somebody that has, essentially divorced herself from her heritage. I don't understand why she feels so compelled that she has to stay in this apartment. And in fact,
Grandma is dead.
She does leave at one point, and then they explain that away with she has this no escape curse. Because she does leave, she goes to the subway, which now looks derelict. She's attacked by a dog and another person. So it does address that, but still she runs right back. I would not. I don't know.
Let me get through these notes. The opening of the film is actually Rosario's first communion. So she's like maybe like 8 or 9. I don't know how old kids are. But they're having a little celebration at the house. And we see that the grandmother is acting really, really weird. Mm-hmm. And I have to say, I do think the opening scene works really well because it's like, oh, as we go to modern day and we see older Rosario and all the things that are happening, it's like, oh, her mom was into like the dark arts. But then when the dad at the end of the film reveals that that was the day that I conjured the demon and your grandmother caught me. So then you flash back to the beginning of the film and it's like, oh, that's why the grandmother was acting so weird, because she just saw her son-in-law conjure some demon. I do think that did work well.
What a stressful day.
That's a horrible
And then you got to
day.
act normal for the kids. No.
Okay, before Rosario, when she's on her way to work, no, when she leaves her work to go...
to take the train.
And she's on the phone.
To grandmother's house we go.
We see like 3 different occasions where beauty ads are being shown, like very... much like they're placed in the shot like notice me. And I was trying really hard after the film ended to make sense of that, like, because I can understand symbols that might show that Rosario has abandoned her heritage, but I don't know why beauty ads would lend them, like everyone wants to be beautiful, so like do you think there was any significance?
Maybe the fact that she also looks a lot better than either of her parents. That was a thought that crossed my mind, like these 2 people had her, okay. But I don't know. I think that she's existing in a space of commercial prospects. Like it's all superficial, it's all meaningless, and that maybe that's why we get such a marked difference in the space that she's occupying in the finale, where she's still cursed. So I don't know.
Oh, like she's coveting luxury, but even that doesn't make sense to me. Everyone wants nice things. I don't think that that's abandoning your heritage.
But is taking advantage of those nice things, does that mean turning your back on a community? Are you paying it forward at all?
Sure.
I think that's maybe a stretch for where this film is positioning itself, but sure.
Okay, I need to keep going. At one point, after Rosario discovers like all the voodoo stuff, she gets on her phone and Googles
witchcraft.
No, she Googles cauldron dirt sticks, and the first thing to pop up is Palo Mayombe.
Well, she Googles 2 other terms first before that, and one of them, and all in caps. I don't know why she's typing in caps.
That's right, yeah. I just felt like that was kind of silly, but what's more silly is she finds these books, like the Grimoire or something, I don't know.
The Evil Dead book.
Yeah, and she...
the pages look like they're made out of leather skin.
When we first see it, it's like, I can't make heads or tail of what's in the book. It almost looks like finger paintings.
Yeah.
And then she starts reading it. And I just think that she goes from 0 to 100.
I was almost thinking you'd have like a skeleton key type feel, like is this woman that doesn't believe, doesn't Griselda at the beginning say something like, you don't have the same beliefs as me? I swear there was some line like that. But yes, this maybe atheist who all of a sudden goes head over heels like, I believe there's a demon and I got to exorcise it and blah, blah, blah. I thought it was trying to do something like that.
Even if she's not atheist, even if she's a practicing Catholic woman, it's still like, okay, so now you just found this like dark art studio and you found all this material and immediately she starts casting spells.
Yes, that's
what's unbelievable to me, that she's immediately taken onto it.
Too bad there's not a spell to clean that apartment or do something. Do you know how bad it would stink to high heavens in there? Especially when in the dungeon part, because she finds like a tongue in a box and like it would stink.
That entire building looked like it needed to be condemned. It's kind of comical the way the building looks.
Having this Joseph Fritzl hidden apartment, like there's no way.
I think one of the more effective moments is after Rosario has unbelievably read this book and is trying to conjure some spell to release the demon, I guess. It's like you have to drain your blood into this thing. And so first Rosario does it. And again, everything she does just feels so like inconsequential, her attitude about it. And then she's trying to bleed her grandmother. And so she cuts the grandmother's finger, the grandmother's wrist, and that's when we see all the cuts. And then she goes for the grandmother's neck and then the demon pops up to stop her. But, I don't think anything about this movie was scary, but if there was a moment of tension, it was that moment because I'm like, ooh, something's
gonna happen.
But then immediately all like that prospect of hope that, oh, this might do something was ruined because we see, and I hate when demons can use technology.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense to me. We see that the demon is messing with Rosario's phone.
Yes.
And I like
the only culture that marries the supernatural with technology well are the Japanese, in my mind.
After Rosario reads a spell, because she does finally get blood from her grandmother by like jamming a knife into her, nothing happens, and she goes, "Did I read it wrong?"
Grandma's like a mummy. She looks dried out.
Honey, you are new to this. What did you expect to have happen? Like, it just, the way she reacts to everything is so unserious to me.
That's the perfect word for this film. And then before she starts spelunking in this apartment, they give her a moment where she's like, she sees something weird and she goes, nope. But then immediately comes back.
Well, you didn't leave, dummy.
Okay.
Okay, then David Dastmalchian, all he has to do is knock on the door, ask for his air fryer, and cough incessantly. Mm-hmm. But at one point, he tells Rosario, your grandmother was rooting for you. Like Tyra Banks. And because I could hear her through the walls. She would say how she wants your success. And then I just thought, does David speak Spanish? How does he know what the grandmother was praying about?
If he can hear her praying, what else can he hear in that dungeon?
Right. So then the ambulance, who we've been waiting for all night, finally show up, and the superintendent lets them in, and they can't find the body. So the ambulance leaves, and then we realize they can't find the body because the grandmother is like levitating on the ceiling. And that's when we realize we do see another spirit kind of creeping around, which I also found weird because so the demon had occupied the mother's body. Is that what happened? So was the grandmother alive all this time with the evil spirit occupying her daughter? What was the mother doing in that apartment?
I don't know.
If she's been dead for a while.
When grandma's on the ceiling and I want to say Melissa Barrera, when Rosario, she's poking at her to get her off the ceiling. It's like, this body is going to have so many post-mortem wounds. Like, is nobody going to want
Well, the autopsy is going to be real crazy because we see the demon go back into the grandmother. So it's like, you're going to see this corpse with all these wounds on it. And then you're going to open it up and see another body inside.
Like, isn't her throat, the inside of her throat going to be all torn up in a weird way? I mean,
is that like how the dentist can tell that you're an avid fellatio performer?
They can. They definitely can. Yes, grandma's throat would be crazy to see. Or what happened to Rosamund Pike at the end of Saltburn. It's like they're trauma.
Another thing that really took me out is, we break the dawn and Dad comes over.
Michelle Williams.
Dad comes over and he's like, oh, did you pray for your grandmother? And he's like, let's just do the basic prayer. And what does Rosario's crazy ass do? Well, let's read a prayer from this book, from the Grimory. Why would you do that? You see the trouble this book got you into. And these two dummies start reading from that book.
That apartment looks worse in the daylight as well. What is that lyric? The daylight sea never hurt nobody.
Oh, God.
It's true.
I am so sorry to the people involved in this movie.
I can see what they're going
I'm just
for.
speaking my truth. I don't know.
I see that this probably will appeal to if you like B grade horror movies with a cultural flair, then you might really like this. But I think that it is subpar on all those levels, and the subject matter is deserving of something much more sharp and
Well, the
astute.
trauma of like migrating to another country for a better life and the sacrifices that this family made to make sure that their daughter had a fighting chance. I feel like it's diminished by, not the strongest lead performance or characterization and too many like, I just think we spend too much time in this silly haunted apartment.
There was at the Cannes Film Festival, and I think this traveled to some places. I don't know if it came to the U.S. at all, but Alejandro G. Inarritu had this virtual reality experience you could have that is a border crossing experience.
Oh,
So
wow.
I had to take a bus to somewhere outside of the film festival, and they put all the equipment on you, and you go into the space, and you go through that experience. Like and it to me that it felt like being a ghost to the trauma, like having to witness that, and I thought it was incredibly eerie.
Well, I have to say, my own mother crossed the border illegally underneath the bed of a truck with like 30 other people in it. And when we were kids and she would describe that to us, it was horrifying. I could smell it, I could feel it, I could feel like the fear and like I could feel the bodies against me. And I just don't know that this film conjured any of that. It just seems like this bratty girl who has no business at her grandmother's house dealing with this right now. Like, yo, grandmother is dead, leave.
Exactly. It doesn't conjure the kind of the gravity of that situation, but I think that it could. To me, this feels like a film that, actually, the screenwriter Alan Treza, you liked his last movie. We both liked his last movie, We Summon the Darkness, and also wrote Bearing the X, which was the Joe Dante film I didn't love so much. But I feel like this could have been honed a bit to where that moment with her mother's spirit could have been incredibly effective.
Yeah, this review's too long. What would you give Rosario?
2.
I would give it 2 out of 5. Join us on Patreon and listen to our podcast. Bye.